My guest today is Ben Rose. Ben is the General Manager of Binance Australia and New Zealand. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Hey, Andy. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. We'll do what we do at the beginning of the show, Ben. It would be great if you could please introduce yourself. Love to hear a little bit of your personal and professional backstory. Yeah, what have you been doing in the lead up to getting involved with the team at Binance?
Yeah, so I'm a POM originally, came over to New Zealand just over 20 years ago. So I've been based in Auckland ever since then. And I suppose my career has been marketing and sales focused. And I've gone through a few different industries, financial services, professional services and tech. So really found a passion for New Zealand tech. Was one of the founding members of FinTech NZ years back, and yeah, that was me. And so living in Auckland, working for sort of big local and Aussie businesses here. Got into crypto personally back in 2020 during the lockdown, as lots of people did, and had the time to really kind of delve into it and explore and get my head around it, and just developed a real passion for it personally. Binance then announced they wanted to launch in New Zealand. Put my hand up for the role. Was lucky enough to become employee number one here in New Zealand and built the local team and business. And then last year had the opportunity to move into a regional role, still based here, but also running the Australian team and the Australian business, which is a bit longer established and a bit bigger than the New Zealand business alone. And so ever since then, I've been kind of running the region and been part of the crypto scene.
Yeah, fascinating. So that's it's an interesting story because Binance, of course, I guess became one of the if not the biggest exchange. I guess back in probably 2018, 2017, around then, after they did the ICO, and then just took the world by storm. Of course, FTX became a competitor, but that didn't last too long. So, and to this day, I guess Binance still, the number one exchange for, in terms of crypto trading, I suppose, altcoins especially, and most places around the world, maybe apart from obviously the US. But yeah, I wonder, Ben, then give us a sense of how that works in terms of, what does it mean for you to be in charge of obviously the New Zealand and Australian operation of Binance? Like, what does it mean for something like Binance, which is a kind of global order book, to have local jurisdictions or local parts of that operation?
Yeah, sure. So Binance started in 2017 and became the largest exchange by trading volume pretty quickly, just because of the tech that the team built could handle amazingly high volumes, and we've just been really focused on that ever since. So I mean, we're doing around $2 trillion a quarter at the moment, and we've got 220 million users. Of those, about 1.3 million are in this part of the world. It's similar to lots of global tech companies, your Facebooks and your TikToks, where you will have a global business with centers of excellence, because it doesn't make sense to replicate things like engineering teams for 150 different markets. So you'll have where there are services that can be done centrally more effectively, that'll be done. But where you need local expertise, then we have local teams and local entities. And so in countries like Australia and New Zealand, where there are specific registrations or licenses that you need to operate in those markets, then we have those. And so how that looks here is, in New Zealand, we're registered with MB. And as a financial service provider, you do things like have to be part of a dispute resolution scheme, and you have to have local compliance officers monitoring transactions and reporting suspicious ones to the police, or sharing data with the tax authorities, those sorts of things. Locally, we've got in New Zealand, we've got about 20 staff, and that's a mixture of the likes of compliance, operations, legal, marketing. In Australia, a bit of a bigger team, about 50 staff, doing similar sorts of things. But the way it looks from market to market is, because there are different rules and regulations around what products you can offer, we have a global platform, but then we have flavors of it available in local markets depending on what registrations and licenses that the local entities have. So my job is to lead the team in this part of the world, and I'm accountable for our P&L, the growth of our business, and looking after our customers here. And we do that. Some things we do by ourselves, and some things we use colleagues globally. So, for example, customer services. We've got a global team of thousands, so that means we can offer 24/7 customer service in multiple different languages. If you were to do that just out of New Zealand, you'd struggle to resource that effectively. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you, Ben. Look, it's interesting though, because, in, I guess, 2017, 2018, around when Binance first started, it was quite difficult to buy crypto from somewhere like New Zealand or Australia. You needed to be reasonably committed, and you needed to sign up to what at the time, even an exchange like Binance, it was a little bit of an opaque process and a little bit of a shot at the dark. It was new territory for most people entering the crypto markets for the first time. Of course, 5 years before that, it was much even harder, and there was something like Mt. Gox might have been the only place you could buy Bitcoin, and it was more opaque again. But now here we are in 2024, and yeah. Binance has local jurisdictions all over the world, and you're hitting the New Zealand and Australia one. I'd be interested just to talk a little bit about the kind of I don't know, are there differences in the New Zealand and Australian markets in terms of other markets around the world? I'm sure there are some differences. Maybe you can start with I guess the regulatory framework and how that works with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the regulatory conversation is really live at the moment, particularly in Australia, not so much here. So what we've seen over the past few years is jurisdictions all around the world are making clear what their position is going to be with Web3. So are they going to be, are they going to welcome it and encourage it and nurture it? So, places like Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Europe, Singapore, Hong Kong, or are they not? So there's a real sense of competition among regulators now around the world to announce what their framework looks like, announce what their position is going to be. Because so countries like, in the Middle East, where countries were particularly dependent on natural resources, they have done what Singapore did years ago and said, look, we are going to be known for financial services. We're going to be known for Web3, and so they've announced licensing frameworks and visas and tax breaks and all that sort of thing. So that's been moving pretty quickly. Europe's just gone live with a continent-wide framework called MiCA. So there's lots happening in the space, and so the question is, well, what does that look like here in Australia, where you've got about 1 in 4 Australians holding crypto versus about 10-15% here in New Zealand. There's a bit more focus and a bit more impetus there. There's been a consultation over there around a licensing framework. Depending on when the general election happens over there, that should be announced at the end of this year or beginning of next. And over there, you've got a fairly big industry with multiple players and competition, and they're all calling for it, and everyone's very pro regulation and wanting it to come. It can't come soon enough. So that's happening on the one hand. In New Zealand, a bit less so. So you've got this lower penetration of crypto in New Zealand. You've got fewer players in the market. I mean, we're the only global exchange that's come and set up locally here. You've got a local player, but that's kind of it in this market. So at the moment, you've got lots of New Zealanders going offshore and not having protections offshore, which is not ideal. But to be fair, it's just not on the high up on the priority list of the government. So I think more than likely Australia will move before New Zealand. New Zealand will then have a look at how that works. But I think largely, if you look at why I, as a central exchange, think regulation is a good thing, is it does two things, right? It gives protections to customers because there are specific requirements that players have to abide by based on what the regulations might be. And that could be things like having, capital on hand in the case of insolvency. It could be custody requirements, dispute resolution, all those sorts of things. So it keeps users safer, but also it gives businesses the certainty that this is a country where I can do business, and so I can invest into the country. And so we as a business are always looking around the world for where are the places that we can set up and do business. And I, as a Kiwi, want Binance to continue investing in New Zealand, because I look at the local industry and I think we need more, and I think we need not just one Binance, we need others to come in too. Australia's kind of seen that, and that's why you've got most of the international exchanges have set up entities over there, and they've got decent customer bases, and so Australians have access to probably more products and services than we can get over here just now. So I think licensing will accelerate that, and we'll do our bit to persuade policymakers in the beehive that we should do the same.
Yeah, that's interesting, Ben, that I think the figures you use, something like 1 in 10 New Zealanders own crypto versus 1 in 4 in Australia. And I wonder if you can maybe just put that into perspective. You probably know a bit more about this than I do, just in terms of like globally. Does that mean that New Zealanders are a little bit behind the curve? Are we a little bit slow to adopt this new asset class? And I wonder if any thoughts on kind of what that says about the New Zealand psyche, if there's any conclusions to be drawn there. Just any other insights in terms of how that stacks up against the rest of the world?
Yeah, so I'll tell you where we sit, but I don't think it's to do with the New Zealand psyche. I think it's to do with structural challenges with the size of our market. Chainalysis every year they do a survey of crypto adoption, and they rank 155 countries. So last year, Australia was number 50 and New Zealand was number 89. So we're not the lowest, we're not the highest, we're somewhere in the middle, but we're certainly behind Australia, which shouldn't be the case if you think about it, because culturally, yes, we've got our own nuances, but largely there are a lot more similarities than differences. So we are behind, and I think the reason is similar to a lot of other industries, right? So that the size of our market means that if you're an incumbent, then it's really hard for other businesses to come in and break into that, because the costs to do so are quite high relative to the size of the market, and so that the business opportunity, the revenue opportunity that you can make. So that's why in banking, for example, we don't tend to get entrants, neobanks that enter into other markets like Australia. We don't tend to get those. Supermarkets, we don't tend to get those low-cost players that do break into other markets like Australia. They don't tend to come here. And in crypto, it's exactly the same. That's why there aren't currently a plethora of international exchanges setting up businesses here. And so I think we as a country need to change that. And it's not impossible, right? Because if you think about Singapore. Singapore has got exactly the same population as us, 5 million. The approach that they took is they said, okay, we don't have natural resources. We need to generate something. We're going to be a financial services hub, but we've got such a small population. We're going to service not just those inside this country, but also those outside it. So they've looked externally and said we're going to be a hub. So I think if we do that, and if we get some of that thinking, we too could benefit from a lot more of that capital that comes in, a lot more of the talent creation that you see in markets with quite small populations like Hong Kong, like Singapore, like Dubai, where they go, this is an opportunity for us. We could create high value jobs. We could create tax revenue. We could create foreign direct investment. It's not an approach we've taken. We've kind of sat back and been really comfortable with the fact that, milk solids do okay and tourism's doing all right, and tech has grown. God, it could go so much faster. So I don't think it's a psyche thing. I think when we launched in 2022, and I tell you what, the numbers were blistering. Like the growth was huge. We've got 330,000 customers in New Zealand. We did $4.5 billion of trading in the first year. So what that says is when there is an option, Kiwis all over it. They're ready. They're good to go. But there just aren't that many options available yet in this industry, as with several others.
Yeah, and look, yeah, great thoughts, Ben. And yeah, I suppose you're right. It's very much, if that you make that comparison to Singapore, and obviously Singapore made that decision, decades ago, really, to start to pivot towards aligning incentives for other companies and so on to move into their financial sector, and obviously they have great geographical advantages as well, in terms of being that on the trade route. But I think in New Zealand, it feels like, Ben, and not to pick on either side of the political spectrum. I think it's the same across the political spectrum in New Zealand. There's just seems to be a lack of ambition and a lack of openness towards new ideas. And I think, crypto as an asset class, it is a confronting idea for maybe, legacy politicians or the legacy financial system, however you want to frame it. That is starting to change now, simply because Bitcoin has been around for 15 years or so, and the Lindy effect takes hold, and now you have the likes of presidential candidates in the US, Trump certainly, speaking at Bitcoin conference. So the tide is turning. Of course, we've got the ETFs, but yeah, I don't see Bitcoin or crypto issues on the agenda here in New Zealand in a political way. Unfortunately, we should be using clean, green New Zealand energy to mine Bitcoin, Ben.
There are some amazing companies, right? There is a New Zealand-based business doing exactly that. But look, we're doing our bit to change the narrative. But I think what's really changed the narrative about crypto globally, and it will come here, is nothing more than the growing grassroots demand. Because let's be really honest, the big fund managers, they're not launching ETFs because they've suddenly decided they believe in self-custody and they suddenly believe in Web3. They're doing it because they know that their customers want it, and they want to do it in a way that they're comfortable with. So suddenly institutions are getting into it. Bankers who previously called it a Ponzi scheme, now they're all about it. And so when it's gone from retail to institutional, now you've got such big groups of people now, wanting exposure to it. That means that all of a sudden there's a vote opportunity, which is why, we're seeing that discussion happening in the US, because, there are some reports there's a block of 50 million voters available now. So of course that's quite appealing. Your counterparts in other markets are starting to talk about this stuff. That conversation is happening now in Canberra and in Wellington. Politicians are needing to get their heads around what this thing is, because the days of thinking it's going to go away, they're gone. It's not going away, and it's here to stay. And so they need to be informed about, what does this mean for us? And I'm biased, right? I think crypto is great. I'm a Kiwi. I think it could be amazing for New Zealand. But, the position that anyone has on either side of the house has to be informed. And if you look at our local media, the tone about crypto hasn't been amazing historically. It has been changing, and we've done a lot of work, as have others in the industry, to kind of educate and change the narrative. But really the only thing that is changing the media discussion, the political discussion, the institutional discussion, is the fact that, we're 13 years in, more and more and more and more people want this. And so the tone changes, because, smart commercial people say, okay, well, there's an opportunity here. And politicians are exactly the same. They, their job is to reflect the desires and needs of their constituents. Well, if more and more of your constituents are into a thing, get your head around it, because it's not going away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you did right, Ben, in that the media coverage hasn't always been particularly illuminating locally. But I wonder, you mentioned your fintech and I guess tech background here. What would some of your, I guess, colleagues or contacts or network in the more, I guess, traditional finance or fintech, however you want to frame it, what was their perspective or opinion, or what kind of comments did you get when you said, hey, I'm going to head up Binance, which is a global crypto exchange, and I'm heading up the New Zealand and Australian arm?
So it was in the depths of the bear market, right?
Yeah.
So most of the questions were, and I'm paraphrasing, are you some sort of idiot? But now it's very different, right? Now there's a lot of people say, well, okay, all right. So how do I get into this, and how does it work? And, what's going to happen to Bitcoin, all that sort of thing. So the questions that they're asking now have changed, but a lot of skepticism back then. It did differ by generation. I don't want to be, the generations, but largely the heads of and the general managers in the New Zealand banks, most of them behind closed doors will go, oh yeah, no, I love it. I've been into crypto for ages and I'm a customer. A level up, the kind of C-suite were not understanding it, thought it was all for criminals and all this kind of stuff. It's not a legitimate asset class. So, there were some very, very, very challenging conversations around that. I remember having a conversation with one of the industry bodies that I thought it would make sense for Binance to join because there was no digital asset representation on there. And the response was, well, to be honest, we only look after legitimate financial assets. So, the vast majority of time we as a business and we as an industry spend outside our own echo chamber is actually explaining to people why the growth in this asset class has been so big globally. It's not just us saying this. This is why this is so big all over the world. But the fact that now, Invesco, BlackRock, Fidelity, etc., are investing in it, the fact there are now ETFs on the ASX and CBOE, the fact that there are now KiwiSaver funds where you can have a percentage of your, your portfolio exposed to crypto, that helps a lot. Because now it's not just that weird crypto guy saying it. Now it's a thing, it's a trend, and like I said before, that grassroots adoption's growing. Those traditional finance houses, they have moved pretty quickly internationally from it's a Ponzi scheme to we're all about it. So you've got the likes of ANZ Bank and JP Morgan creating their own stable coins, doing cross-border settlements for institutional customers. You've got HSBC tokenizing gold. You've got NAB doing trials with the Reserve Bank of Australia. You've got Standard Chartered launching custody solutions. So it's changing very, very rapidly. Not yet here. It is changing over the ditch. The talent transfer from crypto to TradFi and TradFi to crypto in Australia is pretty fast. And so I would expect that to start happening a little bit over here as the Australian parent banks start to get more comfortable and start to launch propositions. I expect to see that trickling through here to New Zealand, but it hasn't happened just yet.
Yes. I wonder then, Ben, if you can talk about the different customer segments or how you think about, Binance users and down under in our part of the world. Like, do you see your users as traders? Are they investors? Are there people that just come onto Binance and buy their Bitcoin, or they DCA into their Bitcoin? Are people using Binance to, various forms of alt trading, meme coins, whatever they want to do? How do you think about those kind of target customer segments, if you like?
Sure. So annoyingly, because we're so broad, the answer is yes to all of those.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you've got 1.3 million customers across the region, there's a lot of different kinds of customers in there, right? I think if we think strategically, crypto adoption is growing, but certainly not. If it's 1 in 4 in Australia and one in 9 or 10 here, there's a long way to go. So right now, centralized exchanges like Binance are a very popular way for people to get into it because the UI is familiar. I can use a credit card to buy or sell. I've got access to lots of different coins. I've got a username and a password. I don't have to worry about seed phrases. So as a way for newbies to onboard, it's a very straightforward way for them to do that. Once people start getting more confident, we've still got lots of people who do custody on the platform. We've got others who take it off and custody themselves. Then you've got people who start getting, we offer over 400 tokens, but there are people who want more, and so they start looking at at the DeFi platforms, and they're off and away, and they're doing that kind of thing. So we've got lots and lots and lots of different profiles, and it's evolving. It's evolving over time. What we are seeing now is an increasing group of investors who have got existing portfolios or exposure to other stuff, wanting to diversify a bit into crypto. And so that's that's really interesting because that's a very, very different type of investor to who was coming in 7 years ago. And so you've got your crypto diehards from the very beginning, and now you've got most of our customers would be below 45, not all, but most. because they're looking at traditional investments and saying, well, I'm going to struggle to save up a deposit for a house. So where am I going to get growth from? So crypto is a place that some are looking to that.
And what's the male female? What's the male female skew, Ben?
It's about 50-50, to be perfectly honest.
Well,
yeah,
okay.
again, it differs by token. It largely differs by token. So if you take Bitcoin, it's pretty broad. Bitcoin's pretty broad, and then when you start getting into the meme coins, it really differs. But altcoins for us have seen a lot of growth. So after Bitcoin went kind of mainstream for crypto, we saw volumes of altcoin investments go up really high. So in our part of the world, the last few quarters, sometimes 2/3 of all our trading volumes have been altcoins, because a lot of people are chasing returns, and they've said, okay, well, Bitcoin's only gone up double in the last year. That's not enough for me. I want more, and so they're starting to get into into the altcoins. Yeah, I mean, our top 10. Bitcoin goes sometimes it's 30-40% of volume, but depending on what the price action's doing, it kind of changes. So yeah, look, unfortunately, the answer is we have all kinds of customers, but the most common retail use case would be hodling, DCAing into assets, and just putting a little bit away. The traders, we've got VIP customers, and we've got professional traders, and we've got family offices who do that. Over in Australia, you've got self-managed super funds. So that there are those who are arbitraging the volatility in the market and trading on a daily basis. But the retail users tend to be more buy and hold kind of users.
Yeah. And look, I suppose from one perspective, if 10% odd of New Zealanders own crypto, it does mean, Ben, over the decade ahead, that there's a big opportunity for you to grow that number, obviously, which is great, especially if you don't have too much competition in the market. There's in New Zealand, there's Easy Crypto, of course, and there's you guys, and really there's a few other players. The other main way into crypto is through the ETFs, which are available on the share apps right now. So, and to be honest, Ben, for a lot of people, that will probably become the safe and easy way to get some crypto exposure, because it's less risky. As much as people love their meme coins and altcoins, it is, as I'm sure you're aware, it's one of the hardest lessons to learn in crypto, is that it is very hard just to beat buying and holding Bitcoin. As much as people are tantalized by the opportunity, and look, go for gold if that's what you're into. I guess what I'm saying, Ben, is though, big opportunity ahead, but how do you think about the decade ahead? Look, it's a big question, it's a long time, but how do you think about growing the market and just growing your user base down under? What are you thinking?
So we would love to see more competition. We would love this to be such an attractive market, such an exciting market, that competitors come into the market, because then it lifts everybody's game. It grows the pie itself, right? So if I look over Australia at the moment, there are lots of exchanges, actually about 400 registered exchanges, amazingly, over there, but probably about 20-30 big ones who are really active in the market. And so what that does is it creates a critical mass, and it creates noise in the market, and education and events, and it means that the market is more accessible to people, because it also raises competition. So people have to have better products. So we would love, and I know Easy Crypto would love, to see more competition in this market, because it's all very well having a large share of a small pie, but wouldn't it be amazing if we could just grow that pie? And we also can look beyond our borders as well. We don't have to just look at the 5 million Kiwis that live here. We could offer, if we had the regulatory settings right, we could offer to others in this part of the world. Like if you think about the Pacific, for example, the Pacific countries pay the highest prices for remittances in the world. And some of those economies, the likes of Tonga and Samoa, some of them have 40% of their GDP is internationally remitted funds coming into the country. So if we could use crypto and blockchain in this region to fix some of those problems, that could be huge. But back to commercial, how do I look at the market? we think there's a big upside. We think there's a big opportunity in the market if we can get our regulatory settings right. If we can get the banking sector comfortable dealing with crypto businesses, which right now it's not. We think there could be a lot of growth here, and those will be the two main things that would have to happen: regulation and debanking guidelines in the market. So we think there's a big opportunity here. I mean, you know, if I just look on the last couple of years of our existence here, the growth has been really big. But now, you know, we're kind of at the point where the existing crypto market in this country, you know, it's got two choices. In order to get it from 15 to 20 to 30 to 40%, we need to really get some more competition in the market, just like in lots of other sectors. So that's, you know, that's our focus as a business is, yeah, absolutely doing the very best we can do for our customers right now, but also lobbying politicians and lobbying banks to say, what are we going to do as a country? We're part of Blockchain New Zealand and NZ Tech doing that as well, saying what are we going to do as a country so we can grow this whole sector, because that would be, it'd be great for us, but it'd be really good for Kiwis to, you know, have as many options and choices as you know, the counterparts like the digital got.
Yeah, well, maybe just talk about that side of things, Ben, if you like. That I guess the outreach, I guess from, and I'm sure it can't be from Binance alone. It's got to be from, you know, as you talk about the kind of the industry sector as a whole, making the case. Partly it's an education piece to the general public, making crypto accessible and friendly, and teaching people how to avoid scams, all that stuff, but also making the case to the regulatory bodies, the industry bodies who, as you alluded to before, have been skeptical, the banks, all of the government, different politicians. It's a big job. You got, you know, a team of 20 in New Zealand, so there's only so much you can do. But how do we do that? Do a better job of that as an industry, I suppose.
Okay, so yeah, we've only got 20, but they're quite busy people. So they do a lot. But so yeah, look, so I'm on the board of Blockchain New Zealand. Blockchain New Zealand is the industry body for Web3, and it's really active, really passionate people on the board. You've got lawyers, you've got project founders, you've got, you know, people like me. Just really passionate about you know, all of the things I've spoken to you about. And so what we do, along with others in the industry, there's Web3 NZ, which is part of Callahan. So there are different bodies doing stuff. Is we do things like organising a conference, running podcasts, all those sorts of things. What we also do is we take part when there are consultations. So there are RBNZ did their digital cash CBDC consultation recently. We dive into that. We give them lots of feedback. We work closely with them, and we have, you know, workshops and sessions with the regulators who are trying to get their heads around this stuff, to say, look, here's some thoughts from the industry. Here's what we've seen in other markets that can work. A couple of our members, Jeremy Muir and Alex Sims, advised the Financial Expenditure Subcommittee back in 2023 on crypto. Did an inquiry into it, and they gave them, you know, a lot of information about that. As an organisation, we run events where we will invite politicians to come to educational events where we'll say, look, this is what crypto is, this is what it does, this is what's happening in other parts of the world, this is what, you know, what regulators are doing, this is what, you know, the likes of Dubai have seen in terms of tax and jobs growth. Educationally, you know, we spend a lot of time with media, and our media activity is targeted at New Zealand users. So you know, we'll do stuff with the likes of the Herald and stuff, and you know, and radio interviews where we will be talking about kind of what crypto is and what crypto isn't, and all that kind of stuff. So just dispelling myths. But we'll also do more business and regulator focused interviews in the likes of NBR and Business Desk, where we will be talking about, you know, the economic opportunity for New Zealand. And we also, you know, as an industry, we look for opportunities to kind of help our regulators and politicians understand this stuff. So if one of them comes out and makes comments about stablecoins being an oxymoron, for example, just, you know, off the top of my head, we will behind closed doors be in touch with that individual to say, hey, saw your comments about blah blah blah. Here are some alternative views from the industry. And you know, if you think about those businesses in New Zealand right now who are building Web3 projects. There are some amazing businesses who have done really well internationally, but there could be so many more. And politicians they like those sorts of stories. They like to hear about businesses that have created, high value jobs for locals, that have brought tax revenue in, that have got investment from major VCs internationally. And we have several, but God, we could have so many more.
Yep. Very well said. Great thoughts, Ben. All right. Well, look, as we finish off this part of the podcast, please just make the case to the audience for if they're local in New Zealand or Australia, or indeed, other parts of the world, why they should come and look at a Binance offering. What are you going to do for people? What should they do? Where should they go?
Okay. So look, first of all, crypto won't be for everybody. So what you should do is you should Google Binance Academy, which will give you a whole lot of free content and education about what crypto is and what it isn't. And if you decide that it is for you, then I'm clearly very biased, and I think you should sign up with Binance, which is very, very easy. You just go to Binance.com. It will send you through to the New Zealand version of the site, username, password, ID documents, and you're in. But the most important thing about crypto is just do your work before to understand what you want to get out of it. So are you going to jump into it and start day trading? Are you going to go in and buy and sell a little bit and DCA into something like Bitcoin? What are you going to try and get out of it? Because one of the things about crypto is it's exciting and it's new and all those sorts of things, but it's volatile. So what that means is loads of opportunities, but also a lot of risks. Yeah, Binance Academy would be a great place to start your journey.
Awesome. All right. Well, I reckon we start to finish off the podcast, Ben, and we do that by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Are you up for it?
100%.
Just going to run some questions at you, Ben. Don't worry, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Just give me your honest answers, hot take style, if you like. Question one for you, Ben, is where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I'm a fan of Bitcoin. I'm open to some altcoins. I haven't decided on all of them, but it's a bit of a case by case for me.
Sure thing. What would you say then, Ben, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
For me, it's all about self-custody. I think that by owning digital assets, you hold your assets, you hold what you have created. Whereas in traditional finance, you don't, and you don't quite know what's happening and who's lending and if you can get it when you want it. With crypto, the fact that you actually hold what you own, that's really powerful to me.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, Ben, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. Now, 10 years in blockchain is a very long time indeed, but cast your mind forward. Anything you like here, Web3, blockchain, Binance down under. What does it all look like in 10 years' time?
Well, look, it took us about 5 years to get our first 100 million customers, 2 years to get our second. So, you do the math. So I think we should have a lot of users on the Binance platform. But look, I think that New Zealand in 10 years, I think that digital assets will be considered just like share trading. There'll be a regulated thing that people do as part of their everyday finances. I think we'll be past the stage of, is it here to stay? Is it not? And I think digital assets and Web3 and blockchain will just be the infrastructure behind a lot of the things we do without even knowing.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, sci-fi author William Gibson famously said that the future is already here, Ben. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Well, I think I'm working on it, right? So in lots of countries in the world, you've got huge numbers of unbanked people. So the traditional finance industry has not been designed for them and it hasn't been accessible to them. That's why you've seen such growth in crypto, in markets where, people haven't traditionally had access to financial tools. So I think the future is here. I think the future is in lots of countries. I think we in New Zealand are catching up to it. We've got a long way to go, but I think if we don't seize the opportunity, others will before us.
Absolutely, they will indeed. All right, well, that brings us to our final question, Ben, which is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, it's got to be Back to the Future. All three. Love them.
Nice. Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox, hoverboards, great selection. Great selection. I love it. All right. Ben, hey, this was fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us, giving some insights into, the wonderful world of Binance down under New Zealand and Australia. Just to finish off, again, like if you've got a Twitter profile or anything like that you want to share, even if it's just for Binance, and again, tell people where they should go to learn all about the Binance offering.
Yeah, absolutely. Just look up Binance New Zealand on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're all over them. And for updates, events, special offers, all that kind of stuff. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks, Andy.